Hi there. How's it going? I'm going to discuss a couple of topics, and one of them is changing words, which I feel just for to be kind of more precise about where meanings have been changed to suit certain things that suit the opposition that we face. Um, One of them is the word psychology. um, Basically, that is the same thing as spiritual, you know, and this has been kind of hijacked. This is a secular humanist word for spiritual. So, where you used to go and speak to, perhaps if you're a Catholic, a priest, or you know, speak to an elder or whatever. Now they line you up with a psychologist, which is secular kind of human wisdom. And they're doing the same thing in this, but with their values system, with the secular humanist values system. Um, you know, with these broken kind of ideologies and broken kind of, cognitive dissonant ideas, which will eventually lead down a dead end or don't sort out the actual problems. So that's, the secular humanists, one of their favorites is psychology, and to work on their all kinds of magical things with their wording, and it's very close to what you would see in the old movies with the two wizards going to battle with one another and casting spells and incantations. And that's kind of like the language. It's the words. It's the ideas. They're putting across their ideas. Except your wizard's his book is either the Bible or it's secular humanism. And this is why there's so much sort of warfare over freedom of speech. And basically, they're muzzling us. The wizard that zapped in the other guy, wizard's got something on his mouth suddenly and he can't speak. This is all symbolic, obviously, but that's what they are actually doing to literally stop you from just saying it. So I think we should actually stop them from also saying it, but we certainly got to make sure that we say what we want to say. The words are magic spells as such, equivalent. And you can see it in their obsessive obsession with psychology and studies of group dynamics and industrial psychology and conformity bias exercises and various permutations of that. Where they literally show a test subject in a room. He's got three other people that are in on it. He's the test subject. He doesn't know. And they're giving out questions. Okay, which line is longer? 4 lines. One of them is clearly longer than the rest or shorter. And the other 3 go first, and they deliberately pick the wrong one. Things like that. And they see how many people will concur and go with conformity of the group conformity. And obviously they know there's statistics on these things. They know these things. They know the human sort of behavior. And it's very effectively used. And we've been very blind to these things for the last couple of decades. Absolutely, totally blind. I mean, I never knew what an Overton window was. I was like, what's that? I thought it was just, things just kind of happened. The Overton window is basically what's acceptable to speak about and is considered polite or acceptable to speak about, or a topic that is morally okay in the public sphere to speak about. And this is what has been moved quite a bit by the left over the many decades. Where you're not allowed to question sex, race, or homosexuality. You're not allowed to question these kinds of topics and religion. And that Overton window was very, it didn't just organically form. These people understood this dynamic. It's a precision thing, and it was artificially coerced into the position that it was through media control, which is basically the equivalent of the pulpit in today's society, and your universities is equivalent to the seminary for leftist LGBT global homos, basically. Essentially, it's the seminary for global homo, lesbians, and feminists. That is the university today. It's not the same university as, in C.S. Lewis's day, for example, where Oxford and Cambridge were truly fantastic organizations. And Harvard and Yale were basically very scripturally based, very God-based. In fact, their origins are all God-based, Christian God, not any other. Don't let people fool you. You can be rest assured the learned institutions and the huge advances in the very important times, were done by Christians in a very Christian mindset in their places of learning. And the secular humanism that's come in, as if anything, has put the brakes on that, has hindered actual really good advances in technology. And of course, the racial discrimination against the straight white male, which is your key, the goose that laid the golden egg, or whatever you want to say. That's another thing that obviously there's a hell of a lot of, looking at the makeup of Black Lives Matter crowds, there's a hell of a lot of university students, aged people that are very happy with cognitive dissonance. They're quite comfortable with it because they would have to be completely blind to see who the victims, in this victim culture of today, who are actually being persecuted in reality. I don't think they're blind. I think it's deliberately done. They just filled with hatred. Then they're very hateful people. Basically worthless, actually. You could gather them all up and round them up and eradicate them, and the world would not miss them one bit. That entire crowd, they're so far gone with even thinking that they can support something that's so blatantly false, such a giant lie. The Black Lives Matter type of movement, and Antifa, of course, which are there, but they've now just calling themselves BLM. The victims they are the establishment. They're claiming the establishment is oppressing them and all this crap. They even have the police specifically have their hands tied behind their backs to actual normal crimes, which we all get arrested for. They get special dispensation to just do these things whenever they feel like it and without any recrimination. It's quite laughable. The honest to God real gangster on the street must be a little bit embarrassed, that they're actually literally getting the help from the state to assist them to bash in white males' heads in large groups, of course. They need that help, So they're kind of tough. A tough guy of any kind. That's out the window. So they, if I was an honest to God gangster like them, I wouldn't want to be associated with that at all. It would be a little bit embarrassing. They literally being aided and abetted by the actual system, and the amount of funding that BLM have had. I mean, that's corporate. It's the corporate world has lost its marbles. They're absolutely radical. Wherever you work and you're earning an income, all of your managers and all of your upper people are radically indoctrinated, which is quite scary because that means you're under that rule wherever you work. You are under that rule, and it's very hard to have your own businesses, etc., because obviously you don't have all the credentials and the certifications that are given by certain mainstream institutions to do certain things. As we know, there's a lot of red tape to just becoming part of the economic system with your own business. Corporates and big sports teams that hand out BLM pamphlets indicating exactly which side of the fence they're on. And they're all very, very comfortable with it, which indicates just exactly how radical, the finance system is. This was what my grandfather would be Mr. Respectable type of job, and considered a respectable person is now scum, basically. And the person who's out in the street with no job is probably a better person, actually, in the classical sense. It's that extreme. So I also wanted to touch on another thing that I'd heard from Jan Lamprecht, who I actually now have to use a virtual private network just to view anything he says. I'm sure he's literally the antichrist to the Jews in the global cabal. But he sheds a lot of light on a lot of very interesting things. One of them was Portugal, which I find very interesting because of my Portuguese ancestry, and how they were rocking, in the late 1400s till the 1600s, and how he identified that there's what caused their downturn, and there's all kinds of ideas about this and that, and they did have a tidal wave that hit them at one point. I think that was the 1700s or so. I'm not sure but he made the point of that actually what it was there was race mixing. And this was the actual inflection point of their skyrocketing kind of society, or country. So that's very interesting, and basically a lot of, and he's saying that this is not just the first time this has happened, and that actually in older encyclopedias you could find this information, but post 1950s you didn't find it in anything. So he dug very deep to find this kind of information, and actually it wasn't the Moors. This was actually slaves that they had imported, and there was a huge shortage of men from them, their pioneering and going off all over the world. And there was, of course, subversion by what he's suggesting, that there was possibly subversion of exactly what America is facing today and exactly what Britain is facing now, of the females, encouraging this kind of interracial kind of mixing and how it actually debilitated them. And you can see it in the average IQ, apparently, which doesn't bode well for me. But anyway, it's it's the truth of the matters that's going to be your salvation at the end of the day. Um, so obviously, the solution lies within a genetic course correction, and reproduction of your future generations. That so he does believe, and a lot of his friends believe, that the course correction is totally possible. The salvation and the improvements and a complete course correction is totally possible, totally doable. But it's an interesting way of thinking. And yeah, so obviously they've also sold a couple of little lies to encourage these unions. One of them is that, oh, well, the African male is like been bred supremely through centuries of slave trading. And this is like one of these kind of points that, and on a very shallow basis, it works. I mean, a lot of these women think like this. And they are selecting these men on that superficial kind of basis. But it's not been honestly, they're looking at, very one-dimensional types of things. Not looking at them, who's the best all-rounder in a sense, like who, even in sports. I mean, you could take sports as an example. There's clear evidence that who are the great runners, and there's clear evidence who are the great swimmers and who are the great all-rounders. If you took triathlon, for example, who's been the winners of every single world champs triathlon or every single swimming event or whatever. And the same goes for intelligence. You have to look at an all-rounder type of thing. I mean, aside from the actual aesthetic beauty of a specific culture, which they obviously are completely tone deaf to through this indoctrination that they've received, and possibly a bit of Stockholm syndrome as well. So course correction is totally possible. It's totally doable. I've known this for a long time myself. I've thought about it, but I have seen that there's huge obstacles very deliberately put there, which is worth a whole other, hour-long discussion if possible. And the one is the kind of female feminist movement, and who's controlling the hearts and minds of that group. Because you have to win that group over, basically. You're not going to be able to do this, with 3 or 4 sort of ultra right-wing kind of females that are on your side per 100 men. It's just not going to work, because currently the numbers are dire in terms of that. But also that it's a Untermenschen, it's a Verboten, which is, that you may not even talk about these things. You may not even think about these things. But they don't have, they're quite comfortable with their cognitive dissonance that, well, then you're going to have a mixed race. Then is that now better? Is that, what is your reasoning for that? Or is it just random? You just randomly selected that, because that is that impossible. People select their partners very carefully and follow their hearts, basically. It's not something that you ever have to be forced into, ever. It's the freest choice people have. And what is the actual psychology behind those things is a whole other thing to look into. But the take-home thing is basically, obviously, course correction is possible. The UK has got a negative declining population of its own ethnic society, as we well know, rapidly being outbred by, fresh Arabs, as I say, as in a black and a white mixing, and then the actual Arabs that have been imported who are having 8 children per family. And these things are huge factors. So you're losing on a couple of fronts there, and on top of it, then your own kind of ethnic group is reproducing at a seriously low rate. So it's probably like 1 per couple, per male and female. It's probably, I doubt it's over that, even though they say it's, 1.7, or because it's just, there's so many single people. So each female needs to be having 2 children, at least, in your society, of their own, kind, in European ethnic groups. As a minimum, I'd say they need 3 just to catch up, 4 even. But it is possible. I mean, in the past, people have had, in the olden days, they had 7, 8 children. Some Boer women had 12 children for 1 woman. So the course correction is totally possible. But of course, we're not at that point because we can't even rally ourselves. The hearts and minds are obviously against us in a huge way. Plus actual physical institutions. You Google white couples and see what comes up. You know for a fact then that every dating app is going to be rigged because they're not going to let an opportunity like that go. So the guys are probably being sidelined, and the girls are being paired up with, third world immigrants from wherever. It's we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We're not moderators of those apps. And you can be rest assured that they're part of the establishment and they're going to work on that. So we're up against a massive task here. But this is one of the things that it's the primary object, the primary sort of factor at this point. And of course, your Christian culture. But I would say that it's been more attacked what's been more attacked is the racial aspect. If I think about what I see out there, etc. It's not, Black Muslims matter, it's Black Lives Matter, and then it's not against Christian men, it's against white men, that as a movement. And as are all the laws in South Africa, 114 laws stopping you from getting work. It's real, it's not imagined, though your family tells you so, or you might have those problems if you're a guy. It's kind of made to be an imaginary thing. Well, but that other guy did well. I mean, how did he do it then? But it's about the attrition rate, and it's about the fact that it is real. It's not. You're not imagining it. Then you're okay to feel, that the system is against you. Everybody's against me. Well, maybe they are, and that is because they are. The establishment, the might of the establishment is literally against you as a straight white male. Then the hearts and minds of all these college girls is against you, where they'll scratch for any way possible to ignore the violence that's going on against whites, and they'll construe it up and then reconstructed as gender violence. You know, the sleight of hand there is phenomenal. And the levels of cognitive dissonance that they're prepared to swallow is quite vomit worthy of your average, you know, kind of straight white college female, you know, university female. And then you just see it through what they get passionate about, what they care about. Their hearts are not with us. That is an absolute fact. So we'll leave it on that note, and also on the positive note that the course is correctable. And we got to figure out the roads to get to that point. See you later.